recently had the privilege of visiting the firm of Joseph Lucas to study their own quality and reliability year.
The campaign had been planned as thoroughly as human foresight could contrive. The troops had been briefed and given their objectives. The top brass had given the order to advance. Now the battle was joined on the shop floor. There were 4 major weapons with which to fight it, to bring to the individual worker a new conception of the part he or she played in the whole complex activity of the factory, and the realization of the extra contribution she and she alone could make to final victory. The first weapon was information. Martha handled hundreds of Reolite base plates every day. Her job was the beginning of an assembly process which employed a team of 6 girls in all. Martha, of course, knew the jobs the other members of her team did before the rear lamp assembly was completed. How the parts in it were produced, what happened to the finished assembly after it had left their team, hadn't seemed to be any of their business. But one day, soon after QRY started, Martha came across a big new display board, and on it was shown the 10 stages by which her base plate was stamped out of the sheet metal by a 120-ton automatic press. Here, she suddenly realized, was a previously unsuspected member of the rear lamp team, the quality of whose contribution obviously affected the quality of the job they turned out. But what were the qualities required of a lamp assembly? Now the assembly teams saw for themselves. The vibration test was routine to the quality engineer. To the girls, responsible for ensuring that the lamp stood up to it, it was an opening of new horizons. If they made their lamps right for the job, they could stand up to far more severe shocks and stresses than they would ever have to meet under actual service conditions. A new pride in their product's performance followed naturally from this realization. Just as a new sense of responsibility for failure began to develop, when people saw the results of bad workmanship or carelessness. It was no good blaming the other fellow. This was your fault. The office teams organized their own demonstration.
Stock errors, incorrect master records, incorrect computer information, we all know, affect the following: manufacturing plans, the buying schedule, the works orders, the stores, and also the factory program.
Everyone was encouraged to question the whys and wherefores of their jobs.
To assemble, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's fairly easily explained with these 2 lamps. You have a short grommet and the long one. This is for fitting in the boot, so it doesn't matter if it's not fully water sealed, but this one, which is in the mud stream, must be water sealed.
The second QRY weapon was competition. A product of the year competition was set up in every factory to give everyone, and especially those remotest from the shop floor, a sense of belonging. Every individual was attached to some product with a chance to share in its reward if it won the Q&R championship at the end of the year. Other competitions were angled to particular departments. A team of designers competed to produce improvements in fog lamps against other teams producing improvements in the other products made in the factory. But you didn't have to be a boffin to win a competition. There was something for everyone. Crosswords, putting 10 factors of Q and R in their order of importance, listing the most common causes of failure in, say, a windscreen wiper. And a successful entry could win you a weekend for 2 in Paris. Workers' suggestions were the third Q&R weapon.
At the moment, the commons come down the line and into the tin, and the swarf gathers at the bottom and sticks to the commons, which causes them to short. My suggestion is to put a grid at the bottom of the tin, which will let the swarf through.
I suggest to give a faster flow of work through a centralist grinder, a piece of rubber be fixed between hopper and tube to obtain vibration.
Previously, there were 2 grinding operations to this shaft. The first operation was to leave the shaft slightly oversized at this stage. It would then go to be assembled. On the second operation, this entailed lifting a very heavy armature onto 2 centres. water running onto the armature was harmful to it, and any rejection on this shaft would mean the loss of a completely good armature. The suggestion has been that the two operations be made into one. First operation to be final, by placing this protective cap onto the shaft all through assembling. So when it comes back from assembly, you have an undamaged shaft and no varnish down a tapped centre.
Training was the fourth weapon in the Lucas Armoury, sometimes conducted by a member of the training staff in the factory itself.
You, as charge hands, would you agree that a large amount of your time is spent in dealing with problems of one sort or another?
Yes.
What sort of problems? Can anybody give an example?
Well, in the tool room, one of my major problems is to fit the maintenance of the factory in conjunction with the manufacture of new tooling.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, the major problem that I have is dealing with bought-in work which is rejected, as this could create a shortage on assembly line.
Thank you.
At the Residential Study Centre, a special study group was introduced, in which all the members of the managerial team responsible for a product spent a week freed from their normal duties, re-examining their techniques. And then they reported back.
The panel here to examine your work consists of your General Manager, Mr. Merrick, Mr. Summerscales as Group Quality Director, and myself as Manufacturing Director. We are here to listen to your analysis of the whole picture of product reliability.
All through the year, management kept their hand firmly on the throttle.
As the year progressed, competition between departments became intense.
A new competition was introduced, in which a rosette was awarded every month to the section with the best Q&R record. One step towards the final goal of a big cash prize at the end of the year to the all-out winners of the Endeavour Shield competition. If you want to keep people fully involved, the first essential is to keep them fully in the picture. So every factory held open house to show whoever cared to look just how the battle was going. The half-time score competition helped to keep enthusiasm alive in a typically Lucas way. People themselves were asked to vote on the effectiveness of 10 different types of incentive. After all, it was their campaign. And so the factories found their second wind for the final burst. Targets that at the beginning of the year had seemed almost impossibly distant were now firmly in view. Wasted material, wasted man-hours shrank week after week towards their ultimate goals. The Lucas Quality and Reliability Year ended on September the 30th, 1965. What had it achieved? Most factories reached their targets. Many beat them. In one typical factory, scrap had been brought down by 12%, rectification by 18%, service returns by 56%, and the overall quality performance had been pushed up by 16%. But behind figures are people.
What particularly fascinated me, being a shop steward on the night shift, was that here for the first time we could meet the people whom we had never had a chance to meet before. We could criticise them and we could meet them face to face, exchange information and work together.
QRY had set out to involve everybody, on the shop floor, or in the design department, or in the store or office. It succeeded beyond all expectations. Its very success presented the management with a new challenge and responsibility. They met it in the usual Lucas way.
To all factory, office and design teams, the board has decided to initiate forthwith a new competition in order to discover how best to consolidate and advance the progress achieved during the Quality and Reliability Year.
Right for the job. That's the slogan for the Quality and Reliability Year.